29th of January 2024. It's been a while since I did a coffee and biscuit news overview, and I just had a feeling I have to discuss some things. There are important things happening around us and we better take note of it. Now please take note. I'm going to give you headlines. And I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary about that headline. You have to go and investigate these things yourself and make sure that you get the facts and then make a decision whether you can support it or not. I'm not going to feed you and spoon feed you, because then it is only words. Once you have done the investigation yourself, it becomes more realistic to you, and that is it. I'm not here to spoon feed you. I'm here to tell you about things that you should take note of. The first one that I want to talk about is a YouTube video that I watched, and Jordan Peterson had two guests on it, Eva Vlaanderen and a guy from Germany, and they were talking about that farmer protest that is happening in Europe today. It is really important that you take note of that, because what is important for us as South Africans to understand is that the XXX is dead set committed on it to get full control over our food supply. That is what they want to do. What happened in South Africa? In the end, we were known to be a country that was teeming with farmers, and they were mostly independent. But then things started changing and XXX started herding them and corralling them. And all these so-called farmer associations sprung up and so forth. And among all of that changes, a new species emerged, the so-called mega farmers. Now what you need to take note of is, first of all, most of these organized agricultural operators are controlled by XXX, financed by XXX, promoted by XXX. Why? Because that gives XXX control over the food production. The mega farmers are part of that plan to get full control over our food. We always want to impress people and tell them that we are so bright and so forward thinking and so intelligent, but we're actually fucking stupid for allowing control of our food production into the hands of this XXX monster. And it is happening right in front of our eyes. I have spoken about it previously. You need to go and take a good look at the farm attacks. Look which farmers are being attacked. In general, it is a farmer that is independent, that don't have a lot of debt so that the banks can manipulate him, and he produces good quality food products. Not like the organized farmers, which are planting GMO and genetically modified animals and feeding them with fucking hormones and you don't know what. Take note of that and make sure you understand that farmers right through the West is under severe pressure and under threat. And if we allow XXX to capture our farmers, we, the people, we're fucked. Something else that came out in that discussion of Jordan Peterson was this thing of being labeled as far right. For years, the liberals were using that label to shame us for being conservative people. But, as they say in that discussion, that far right label has lost its power. And now, people on the ground are beginning to flock to this so-called far right of the political spectrum. Far right has now become something that they want to be. I can see problems coming. And then I see this little article about Clarence. It's a small town in the Free State and they call it the first smart town. Now, you can see it as a positive or a negative, but let's just be realistic. Clarence sits out there in Mulampur, totally isolated. It's a typical small town. To now say that they're becoming a 15-minute city and all that, cuck. Just bullshit. I mean, this is a natural development. Bloody town is so small, you can walk around it in half an hour. So, I think it's a bullshit advert there. And then I see this with a reference to the MK party. Zuma makes history, ANC is in trouble, MK is taking over. I have spoken about MK and how I see MK, but that's for a discussion, not for a news overview. And then there's this. Off-duty police officer gunned down in Cape Town. The police officer's friend who was with him also died in hospital. Now, it's a headline and we look at it and we might just scroll past it. Just look at the reality behind that headline. Even the police force is under attack. That should tell you that the criminal gangs that is being planned and has been bred to take over South Africa is already firmly in the seat. And then there was this one from the Daily Maverick. Clear as mud, the ministers fly by the seat of their pants on President Ramaphosa's fuzzy performance. Despite a miscellany of debacles, no government minister has yet been sacked. I'm not surprised. X doesn't want clever people in charge of the country. They want the dumbest of the dumb ones there. And Ramaphosa he's just keeping control over these dumb ones. And then we have this one. Hijackers seize 118 million state social housing project. Now, there again, look at it. I'm not going to go to the details. Fact is, gangsters taking over state housing complexes. How the fuck does that happen? And then I saw this one, and it's a video that was being passed around of Israel removing the South African flag in Tel Aviv. Now, it may be just a little bit of an incident, and there's a video of a guy going up on that cherry picker and take the flag off, and he just takes the flag off the pole and he throws it to the ground. No respect for the flag, nothing. Fact is, that is the results of the ANC's choice to bring that court case to the ICJ, which is a total bum case now. What did they get? They got fuck all from that case. But South Africa has been smeared. The reality is, the ANC actually strapped on a suicide vest when they took that case to the ICJ. But where is the Freedom Front Plus? Why is the Freedom Front Plus not on top of them like rabid dogs? Nah, don't make waves. And then there's this little article. Members of the South African Defence Force may use dagga. Well, they need something to take them away from reality. And then I go international. Riots continue in France. Eco-activists pour soup over Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa in the Louvre. What is more important, art or the right to healthy organic food? Our agricultural system is sick, the two women shouted. There it is. People are waking up. And then there was this little video that's actually quite interesting, and it shows President Putin going to lay a wreath at a memorial in pouring rain. Pouring rain. He stands there without an umbrella, without anything, and he lays the wreath. Sleepy Joe looks at the arrival of some dead soldiers, and then he looks at his watch and he moves off. That's the difference between a real president that cares for his country and a fucking X puppet. And then there's an interesting video that I watched in which a surgeon explains the conditions under which he had to treat his patients in the Donbass, in civilian areas, while the Ukrainians keep on shelling those civilian areas. But the West finances that, the West promotes that, the West supports that. How is that possible? the West, they promote this terrorizing of civilians. On the other hand, they want to cock in their pants about what the world is saying about Israel. And there's this interesting article, the US creates crises around the world, then wants China to solve them. The US has been completely unreasonable in its unconditional backing of Israel's military campaign, argues the political analyst Timur Fomenko. Rather than confronting the problem directly, it has proposed another idea to outsource both blame and the resolution to China and ask Beijing to help in the conflict. That is something that you should think about. And then there's just this little snippet. 80% of the Hamas tunnels are intact despite Israel's ongoing onslaught on Gaza. US and Israeli officials believe that hundreds of kilometers of tunnels are still operable despite the IDF attacks. Between 20 and 40% of the tunnels have been damaged, with disabling them a primary Israeli objective for capturing Hamas leaders and rescuing the hostages. And then we have this. Lindsey Graham, you know that senator from the US, he reckons hit Iran now, hit them hard. And then there's another senator, John Cornyn, target Tehran. I don't know what the Americans think will be the end if they do that. And then there's this that you should take note of. Brussels threatens to hit Hungary's economy if Viktor Orban vetoes the Ukraine aid. Viktor Orban knows that that is a lost cause in Ukraine, and he knows that the European, the EU citizens are being impoverished by this stupidity. But because he's the voice of reason, the EU is now ganging up and they want to destroy Hungary's economy. This is the problem I have with these fucking politicians. They make statements like these, and they say casually, we will destroy Hungary's economy. What they don't tell you is they're going to destroy the lives of millions of people. How the hell is it that those politicians are still able to walk around freely in Europe? But Moses 6 verse 6, stupid people must suffer unless the tribes in Europe wakes up and remove those cretins. They are going to suffer. Now listen to this cuck from Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi tells CNN that protesters who advocate for a ceasefire in Gaza are spreading Putin's message and wants them investigated for possible links to Russia. What the hell? That thing she must be put out to pasture. Paris locks down as farmers threatens furious protest. French Interior Minister has deployed some 15,000 police in the Paris region to battle the expected blockade planned by fuming farmers. Agricultural workers have stated they plan to lay Paris under siege Monday afternoon, targeting the crucial Rungus International Market that supplies the capital with most of its fresh produce, a day after activists splattered the Mona Lisa with soup to support their healthy food and fair conditions for farming. And then I sit here and I look at a video of the issues there on the Texas border. And if you look at the general things around that, there's now a lot of states that are now supporting Texas, and they are sending their soldiers to go and help protect that border. It looks like there's a showdown coming between Texas and the federal government. And I have a funny feeling the federal government's going to lose pants down here. But what is more important, Texas is now threatening severely with getting out of that United States. They want to secede. And it is my personal opinion that if Texas secedes from the United States, that will be a death torpedo to the XXX plans of ruling the Western world. Now look at this stupid statement from Jens Stoltenberg. Washington's defense budget should be used to support Ukraine, says the NATO head. What stupid suggestion is that? And then I have to mention that Russian passenger plane that has been shot down in the Rostov area. It is quite clear that thing was shot down by Ukrainian anti-air system. The sad part is that that plane was filled with soldiers that were captured by the Russians or that surrendered to the Russians, and they were on their way to be given back to Ukraine. And the flight has been registered with the Ukrainians, and still they shot it down with the Patriot system. You can try and let that make sense to yourself. To me, it makes no sense. And then Maria Zakharova made this statement: "It is time for the American president, in the best traditions of his predecessor Obama, to declare Texas must go and assemble an international coalition to liberate its inhabitants in the name of democracy." Maria Zakharova, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman. Now, in Ukraine, the Russians are busy sweeping those Ukrainian forces and military equipment aside at a steady rate without taking too much losses themselves, but our media will not report on. Ukraine's hopes for victory over Russia are slipping away. It's hard to ignore the sense of desperation in Ukraine's corridors of power. As the newspaper notes, US officials and their Western counterparts expect a lean year ahead, in which Ukraine's increasingly depleted forces will focus more on shoring up their defenses than on mounting counter-offensives. They should stop that shit there, but they won't. And I have asked many times, why not? I've received many messages from people with suggestions, why not? But you have to ask yourself, what is so important in Ukraine that the West were willing to bankrupt themselves and basically disarm themselves to try and defend it? Ask yourself that question. Now, here in South Africa, we have got this Battle of Centurion looming for the 2nd of February. And as I have said in some of my Skidmarks, which were dedicated to it, what the people need to understand, this is a protest against politicians that has elevated themselves to a royal class that can rule over us instead of being our representatives. That is what the Battle of Centurion is about. Nothing else. Just this simple fact that the controlling gang, I call them the Vaseline gang, in the Freedom Front Plus, has captured that whole organization, and that whole organization is being directed and steered in whichever direction the Vaseline gang wants, with no interest in what is the benefits for the voters. Think about that and make your mind up. I don't care in which political party you are. Ask yourself this question. The political leaders of my party, are they there to serve my interests, or are they there to serve some other interest that has got nothing to do? Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.